What's going on, Building the Village family? It's me, your Chief Village Building Strategist, Dr. Brandon W. Jones, and I want to welcome you all to episode number 43 of the Building the Village podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're catching us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Twitter, Good Pods, Amazon Podcasts. I don't know, wherever you're getting your podcasts at. And whether this is your first episode listening or your 43rd episode listening in, I really, really, really appreciate the support. As always, if this content resonates with you, if you like what you're hearing, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because I genuinely love interacting with you all in the comment section on YouTube, or in the DMs on Instagram, or in the comment section on posts on LinkedIn, wherever you're tuning in or finding this episode at. I really, really, really enjoy connecting with you all in the village, because we're the villagers. We in this thing together. If it takes a village to raise a child, it's gonna take a village to nurture and develop happy, whole, and healthy adults. So make sure, if you're not already doing so, follow me on YouTube and Instagram at B Jones Speaks, and also on Facebook. And then you can find me on LinkedIn as well. So last week, you all heard me talk about in episode 42, you heard me say that I was going to put an episode out on my birthday. So by now, if you're listening to this, I will have turned 41 by the time that this episode comes out. And so I'm excited, and I've learned a lot. And in learning a lot, one of the things that I said I would do is talk about people pleasing. And if you know me, if you know anything about me, you know that I love people, and I absolutely like and love when people like and love me. So much so, I've struggled a little bit over the last couple of years with people pleasing. And so today I want to talk about this, because many of us, including myself, struggle with this. People pleasing, by definition, for those of you who are listening to this and are like, what the heck is that? People pleasing is the tendency to prioritize the needs of other people over our own. It often comes at a great cost. And this behavior frequently stems from a trauma, a fear of rejection, or a deep-seated desire to not let others down. And some of you may be thinking, well, man, you know what? I'm good. That's not really me. And I applaud you. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to keep listening, because you might recognize some of these traits in somebody that you're close to, or you might not think you're a people pleaser. And after I describe these traits here in just a second, you may discover that you actually are a people pleaser. No matter where you find yourself on that spectrum, make sure you stick around and share this episode with somebody, or save it for yourself or someone else later. Now, for those of you who know right now, when you saw that title of this episode, when you saw that we're going to talk about people pleasing, and you know, oh my gosh, that's me. Oh my gosh, Brandon is talking about me. Let's get together here for just a second, and let's unpack what this really looks like. And so I'm going to put this in the episode liner notes, but I came across this insightful article in Psychology Today, which outlines some of the common traits that are associated with quote unquote textbook people pleasers. Here's a couple of them. I'm going to look down here at my notes for just a second. Number one, it's low self-worth. Number two, accommodates everyone else's needs. Number three, undermines his or her own needs, goes with the flow that's dictated by others, is too agreeable in general, does not assert themselves, rarely says no, feels valuable when complying with others, values praise from others, says sorry when no apology is required, takes the blame when not at fault, makes excuses for the faults of others, and has little self-awareness. I'm going to read that list one more time just to make sure we captured this. But again, in psychology today, they said that some of the common traits of people pleasers are low self-worth, accommodates everyone else's needs, undermines his or her own needs, goes with the flow that's dictated by others, is too agreeable in general, does not assert themselves, rarely says no, feels valuable when complying with others, values praise from others, says sorry when no apology is required, takes the blame when not at fault, makes excuses for the faults of others, and lastly, has little self-awareness. Let me ask y'all a quick question. Do any of these traits resonate with you? Just take a second and think about it. Do any of those traits that we just talked about resonate with you? If so, number one, realize you're not alone. Number two, the good news is that we can break free. We can break free from this cycle. And so today, what I want to do is outline five strategies that are going to help you and help us in the village stop being people pleasers. Now, I got to put up a real quick disclaimer because the internet be interneting sometimes. And so let's just say this. Number one, I am not a licensed therapist or mental health professional. My wife is. Okay. So I'm not offering any therapeutic advice. It's simply a set of tools and strategies that have worked with students or clients that I have consulted with and coached throughout the years. And so I'm offering this as a set of tools or resources, if you will, that have worked for me and have worked for those that I might have coached or taught through the years. Okay. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about these 5 steps. The first one is we need to admit, oh my goodness, here we go. We're diving in. We need to admit that we're people pleasers. Pause for dramatic effect. You got to admit that you're a people pleaser. Acknowledgement is the first step to change. You can't address an issue if you don't recognize that it exists. Okay? You want to make sure that you reflect on your behaviors and identify patterns that might point to people pleasing tendencies. You got to admit that you got a problem. You have to admit that, man, I might have low self-esteem, or I might say yes when I really want to say no. I might quote unquote go along to get along at my own personal expense. I might prioritize the needs of other people over my own at great cost. Listen, friends, we have got to admit that we have a problem. That's the first step. Now, the second step is you want to determine what your self-worth is or what your value is. That is very, very important. Your value, my value, is not tied to how much we do for other people. Okay? It's not tied to how much we please other people. We are not more valuable when we're doing stuff for other people. Now, what I'm not saying is that we're not valuable when we're serving. Serving is different because that is a conscious decision that we've made to provide a legitimate need for someone or some or other people. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about with people pleasing is I'm just doing it so they won't be mad or so they won't be sad. Listen, friends, our value is not tied to how much we bend over backwards for people. And I want to encourage all of the villagers listening right now to take some time to explore what makes you uniquely valuable as a person. What are those things that make you great by your definition? Maybe you want to journal this. Maybe you want to write this down. Maybe you want to talk to your therapist, or maybe you want to start going to therapy so that you can actually determine how valuable you really are? Because if you lack that self-worth, if you lack that value, you're going to let other people define it for you. And for a lot of us, we do this when we're people pleasing, when we're bending over backwards to make sure that we do things that don't upset people, and when we do things that don't make people feel bad. Listen, we got to determine that self-worth and value for ourselves. Here's the third thing, and you're not going to like this one because I don't like it either. You got to set boundaries. You got to set boundaries. And I know somebody heard me say that and they thought, oh my gosh, that means I have to tell people no sometimes. Oh no, that means that if I put up a boundary, that's gonna upset the people around me because they're not used to me standing up for myself. They're not used to me advocating for what my needs are. Let them get upset. Let them get upset. We'll talk about that a whole nother episode. Let them get upset. Stop dimming your light so that other people can feel comfortable about themselves. You better tell people to put those sunshades on. Boundaries aren't necessarily about shutting people out, y'all. They're really about protecting your time, your energy, your space, your peace, your well-being. That's what putting a boundary in place is all about. We need to clearly define what we will and won't accept in our relationships. That is very important in the village because too many times, because we have a lack of boundaries, people walk all over us. There's a difference. I'm going to put this in here. There's a difference between being a bridge and a doormat. There are very clear differences in between being a bridge and a doormat. Let's talk about the differences. A doormat, you step on it. You wipe your feet on it. It's intended to be used to get walked all over and messed up. And then if it can't be clean, disregarded. That is not you, my friends. That is not how we do things in the village. A bridge connects people, things, and places to one another. And you're gonna transport. It's normal for people to walk across, but not walk on or step all over, right? That's the purpose of being a bridge. Some of you are great connectors. Some of you are good at connecting people to resources and opportunities. And at the same time, we've been taken advantage of because of it. Why? Because we made the mistake of allowing ourselves, because we didn't have any boundaries, we allowed ourselves to become doormats instead of operating as bridges. Because guess what? When bridges need to be repaired, the bridge gets shut down. For maintenance, for care. When's the last time you put up a boundary that gave you time to rest and recuperate? That's a whole nother podcast episode, but you got to set boundaries. And surprise, surprise, what do you think the next point's going to be? It's learning when to say no. You got to learn when to say no. Friends, no is a complete sentence. How many of us have ended up going out with friends simply because we lacked the ability to say no? How many of us let a person move in with us for a year or 2 years simply because we lacked the ability to say no? How many of us wanted to stay home and chill out and relax, but ended up, you guessed it, out not having a good time, bringing everybody's mood down? Why? Because we didn't say no. Listen, you got to learn to say no. Saying no can feel uncomfortable. It can feel messed up at times. But saying no is a vital skill. It is a vital skill. I want you to practice saying some small no's in low stakes situations so that you can build confidence. Because some of us have never told people no. We've always said yes when we really wanted to say no. And Apple, in my news feed today, had a whole article about why people say yes when they really wanted to say no. In 2025 and beyond, Can we start just saying no? Take a deep breath right now. Let's say it together. No. Okay. Here's the last thing. Not only do we need to admit that we're people pleasers and determine our self-worth and values, not only do we need to set boundaries and learn when to say no, the last thing we got to do, y'all, is execute the plan. We got to execute the plan, because it's one thing to say, yes, I'm a people pleaser. It's another thing to say, you know what? I know what my value is, and I'm setting boundaries, and I'm going to start saying no. And you can turn this podcast off and go on your merry way back to doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's called insanity. Friends, we have got to execute the plan. Breaking free from people pleasing requires action. We can't wish it away. We can't hope it goes away. Wishing and hoping are not strategies. I'm going to say that again. Wishing and hoping are not strategies. Breaking free from people pleasing requires action. So you need to think, we need to think and identify situations where we tend to fall into these patterns, where we say yes and we lean into people pleasing, and we need to go a different direction and commit to responding differently. Because if we don't learn to respond differently, we're just going to keep perpetuating the same cycle over and over again. And then we wonder why we're tired. We wonder why we're exhausted. We wonder why we're burnt out, because we did not learn to say no. We didn't put up boundaries. We didn't determine our value and self-worth. And more importantly, we didn't admit that we have a problem people pleasing. We don't need people pleasers in the village. We don't need that, because it's too easy to get taken advantage of that way. And again, as I said earlier, this need to people please, it is deeply rooted in some type of traumatic response or experience, or this desire to not disappoint or let people down in an unhealthy way. Y'all, we got to do better. We got to do better. It's a new year. We got goals. We got resolutions. We got goals, because we said last week we're not doing resolutions. We've got goals. We're trying to accomplish major things in the village. And so this is how we're going to wrap up today's episode. I hope these strategies inspire you to take that first step toward prioritizing your own needs and breaking free from people pleasing. If you found this episode helpful, please do me a favor and like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Hit me up on Instagram and let me know what you thought. Leave me a comment. Please leave me a comment on YouTube. I definitely want to hear from you all. I definitely want to hear what you thought about today's episode. And again, don't forget, you can follow me at B Jones Speaks on Instagram and YouTube. And so until next time, let's keep building better villages, one villager at a time. Peace.